All right, here we go. I am Katie Sanford. Thank you for joining us today. We are here with Deborah Peoples, who is running for mayor of Fort Worth. Hi, Deborah.
Hi, good morning, Katie.
Good morning. Thank you so much for being here and talking with us. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I would be happy to do that. But Katie, first, I have to tell you, I am just so thrilled to be here with a group of extraordinary women and with you, because that's what this whole journey, my whole journey is about, is lifting each other up. And so I started telling Katie, everybody, before we started recording, that I grew up in a very diverse neighborhood in West Texas, and we were poor, but we didn't know it because we had everything that we needed. It was a working class neighborhood. It was racially diverse. It was diverse in terms of religion. I grew up with Quakers, and I'm Catholic and Baptist and Methodist and Baha'is. And so I grew up learning about other cultures and other people, and I just accepted that as normal. And so, Katie, it wasn't until I went away to college that I started seeing differences and how people pulled into different groups. And for me, that was abnormal. And so my whole life has been about trying to pull people together. And so I tell people I was built for this mayor's race. I am the perfect candidate at the perfect time in history to not only understand Fort Worth, but to create a long-term vision for Fort Worth, and then to see that vision to fruition.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you mentioned your vision for Fort Worth. Tell me, what does that look like? What is your vision for Fort Worth?
Okay, so you have to understand Fort Worth, and I think that's what many people don't understand. I moved to Fort Worth in 1975, Katie. Yeah, I'm an old lady. See all the gray hair, but
No, that's
Fort
silver. That's
Worth.
platinum.
Oh, okay. Oh, I love that. So Fort Worth today is radically different than it was in 1975. The city is growing by leaps and bounds and exponentially. And you live in North Fort Worth, so you know it. You're feeling the pain of very rapid expansion without a plan. We've got almost 1 million people, and in the next 20 years, we're going to pick up another 500,000 people. We're just growing that quickly. But we're also, Katie, very different. We're very racially diverse. I love to tell people, we really are, we're about 35% white, 35% Latinx, 20% African American, 5% Asian, and all the others. And so we're this really diverse city. And that means not only racially, but culturally. We've got a lot of different things going on here. And then, Katie, we're a young city. I look at you and I look at me, and you're the future. And so we're building a Fort Worth. We have to be smart about how we build it and we expand this city. So number one, I want to bring everybody to the table. Everybody, all the different groups together, so that everybody feels like they have a say. Last night I was at a forum, and it made me very sad because one of the candidates, who is Guatemalan but Latinx, said he visited on the north side, and residents on the north side of Latin descent don't feel like they're connected to the city. They feel like they're ignored. That should never happen. We should be doing things. But also, once I connect all these people, we need to come up with a shared vision. We are building a city for you and your babies. And so we need good jobs in this city, so everybody can get a great job. And people don't know this, but we are a working class city. The majority of our residents do not have a college degree. So we've got to be bringing jobs here that, they could qualify for. We got to be bringing all kinds of jobs, jobs for college graduates, but highly technical skill jobs. But we also have to be building jobs for plumbers and electricians and those kinds of things. We have to bring all kinds of good housing here. I tell everybody, I live in an old neighborhood with older infrastructure. infrastructure, an old single family home that's 4,100 square feet. We're not going to be building a lot of those anymore because, you know, we need a good affordable housing base that people of all incomes can afford. We need mass transportation, and so many people don't understand mass transportation. They think of it as a city bus. It is not. It is more. It is multimodal. It is having light rail. It is having all kinds of different things to get transportation needs, because believe it or not, many people no longer want to buy a car and invest, you know, $1,000 a month in a car. So I want us to sit down and come up with a comprehensive plan for growth, and then to come up with a timeline on how we execute that and a strategy on how we execute that, rather than letting us just grow willy-nilly. A lot of stuff to unpack.
You're right. And I think you're absolutely right. There is so much growth happening in Fort Worth right now. And I mean, even in, you know, I'm in the North Fort Worth, and there's neighborhoods popping up left and right, and businesses and people and traffic. And so no, you can see it. You can see the growth. And I think you're right that some things need to grow with the people.
That's right. And Katie, Fort Worth has not done its best work where I tell people all the time, I live inside the loop in an older neighborhood with aging infrastructure, but we have not done our best work for people who live outside the loop. Ambulances shouldn't have to sit in traffic to wait to get to you. You should not be caught up and snarled in traffic trying to get home or just trying to get to the grocery store. And what we saw, what I call outside the loop, but it is south too. We've seen this exponential growth, and we did not put in the infrastructure and invest in the infrastructure. And that's roads, that's streets, that's, you know, plans for public safety, that is, you know, lights, all those things. We didn't have adequate infrastructure, and so you all are paying the price for that.
I don't know if they could have predicted this much growth this fast. I don't know the back end of it, but I didn't know it was gonna go that fast and that
Well,
big.
Well, but that's what good leaders do. That's not your job to worry about that. That's the leadership's job. And when we knew, like when we were bidding to get Texas Motor Speedway, we knew that, you know, it's like, if you build it, they will come. You know, it's a world-class racetrack. We knew that businesses would come. We have to sit down, and you can't just plan. If you're a good planner, you can't just say, oh, this is what it's going to look like in 2 years or 5 years. You have to say, this is what it's going to look like in 20 years. You really sit down. And that's why I tell people my business experience comes in handy. I worked for AT&T for 35 years. This is what I do, is strategic planning and long-term strategies. You sit down and look at that and plan for that. And I really think we only did some short-term planning. I wasn't at the table, so I can't say that. I can't answer that for, you know, sure, but I will tell you that good people do long-term planning, and we just did not do that.
Well, I'm excited to see what happens next with all of that, because it is crazy, but it's also pretty cool that everybody wants to
Yes,
come live here. You know, I love Fort Worth, but
I
what
do too.
good, good. You know, what would you tell you being, well, let me ask you this first. What, you being a woman in a leadership role, you know, have you in a predominantly, you know, male dominated field, have you faced any adversities getting to where you are
Oh,
now?
oh, Katie, I love that question, because absolutely. Okay, absolutely. Hold on. I'm sorry. Here I am multitasking. Somebody is trying to get me desperately, and I just told them I'm on this great interview. So I will tell you, I'm approach it two ways. So I'm going to approach it first as a woman and then second as a woman of color. So I love to tell people, when I first started to work for AT&T many years ago, I walked into the room and all of the women in that room, most of the women in that room were in clerical positions. And for those of us who were in a little higher position, I was in outside sales, those were all women. All of our supervisors were male. Every last supervisor was a male. And, the assumption was that, even when they had opportunities to promote women, whatever color they were, they didn't. They promoted males. And so we always had to work a little bit harder to show that we were capable. And we had to change society's perception that women were capable of doing jobs other than clerical and administrative. And so I will tell you, I felt an immense amount of pressure because I started my first job in sales to go out and prove that women could do sales jobs. And so I think that is changing, but it is because women had to take jobs that were traditionally male and excel at them. And I tell everybody, men were allowed sometimes to do mediocre work, but our work always had to be stellar. And then I will tell you that as a woman of color, I also had to fight the perception that I got my job because of affirmative action. I came along at a time when there was affirmative action. And so I like to tell this story that when I went to take the job for AT&T, I went on my lunch hour. And because a friend of mine told me, now, Katie, I'm showing my age. I was working for the city of Fort Worth, making $500 a month. And a friend came to me, and I thought that was a good salary. And a friend came to me and said, gee, if you go to work for the phone company, as it was called, then you can make $1,000 a month. I was like, oh my God, I'm doubling my salary. I'll be rich. So I run across the street because the buildings were across the street from each other. I left City Hall on my lunchtime. I went across to AT&T and I walked in and said, I want to apply for this job and I want to take the test. And they said, you're in luck. We're giving the test now. If you can take the test now, you can take it today. I was like, great, give me the test. So I took the test and passed it, not knowing that test was supposed to be one of the hardest tests ever and had a high failure rate. I didn't study for it at all. I went in and took the test and passed. I later learned from a friend that you could either, based on the test results, you could either go into management or you could go into non-management, and non-management were our labor positions. I qualified for both. Guess where they stuck me? In the non-management. Yes, but guess what? I tell people I'm the luckiest person alive because they may have done that based on not wanting to give a woman a management position or a woman of color. Best training I ever got in my whole life. Best, absolute, some of the best training I got, some of the friendships that I made are still friendships today. I built a friendship with my friends in labor. I learned about labor. I learned what is important. And so when I finally went to management, I went with an understanding of both worlds. And I just think that was critical and stood me in good stead. So I tell everybody, it doesn't matter where you start. It's what you do when you're there, and it's what you draw from it. And so had I been angry and bitter when I found out that I could have gone to management, absolutely, I would not have been the person I am today. They put me in one place and I thrived, and it led to all kinds of great opportunities. So that's my first thing. Wherever you are, excel and love where you are.
I love that. That's a good way to look at that. And
Mhm.
like you said, when it could have been a very negative
Yes,
outlook and you turned it into something positive, I think that's awesome. Um, and like you said, the relationships, everything you learned, I think when we all look back at our experiences, we can find good in all of them, even if it seems
absolutely.
bad. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
So my next question with that, I know you kind of touched on it some, but what advice would you give for women trying to get into leadership roles, or maybe even start a business or build a team, or just anything that you've learned along the way, or maybe that you wish you'd have known sooner, or anything like that? Just any little piece of advice you could give for
Okay.
women.
So I tell this story, Katie, and it's going to sound crazy, but it all starts with you. And you need to do some real soul searching and be willing to be your biggest cheerleader. And so I'm going to tell you, this has nothing to do with sexes, whether you're a male or a woman. This has to do with a sense of self-worth. And so I tell everybody that I have this ritual that I do every morning. I get up, and so today I'm without makeup. I was out yesterday walking and standing at poles, and my eyes got all puffy and everything. So this is a no makeup day. But guess what? I go to the mirror every morning before I comb my hair, before I brush my teeth, and I go, darn, you look good. And the reason I do that, and I tell everybody to do it, you have to be willing, even at your worst, to acknowledge all the great things that are inside of you. And so, Katie, I tell people, the people aren't out to get you. People know what they want, and sometimes you get in their way, and so they're going to move you aside. So number one, don't take things personally. Do not take things personally. And that's a hard lesson for people to learn, because the first thing, if something bad happens, you want to say they don't like me, or they're out to get me, or blah, 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 blah. Don't take things personally. They really aren't. They want what they want. And the next thing, you have to have this incredible sense of self. And so I will tell you, as a woman in business, as a woman who worked in the business community, then as a woman who ran for elected office and won, people are going to say things about you all the time. They're not people. Sometimes people just say things and they don't even know you. So the first thing I always ask, is it true? Whatever they said about me, is it true? And if the answer is no, it's dust it off and I move on. But if the answer is yes, then I need to do some reflection. If people say, she doesn't always speak to people. So the question is it true? And if the answer is yes, then I have to say, why is that? Am I moving too fast that I, don't take the time to acknowledge people? Is it because, I'm not reaching out like I should? And so that's why I tell everybody, you have to ask, is it true? And if it's not true, then you don't let it bother you, because that's not your issue, that's theirs. But if it is true, you have to sit and evaluate, what could you do better and how do you remedy it? And so two things is, know that people aren't always out to get you. They're trying to live their own lives. But two, you have to have this strong sense of self. And then you always have to evaluate what is going on in the world around you.
I love that. I love that. Good advice. And you look fabulous. I would have never guessed you had no makeup on. So this is your natural. I wouldn't even ever put it on.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, yesterday Kate, one of the best things about being in community. And so I'm going to say community can be many things. It doesn't have to be politics. If you're, if you go to your children's school and you volunteer, that's in community. If you work in your church, if you just go out and belong to a club that plays, that you all just go play, Ruby Cube down, Rummy Cube. There is so much that when you're out in community, that's where it starts. It's about the relationships you build with people, and just start there. And that's why I tell everybody, they say, well, I want to get into politics. I said, you're already in politics. Do you belong to a club? Yes. Do you, volunteer at your children's school? Yes. Do you do something at your church? Yes. Then you're already there. You're really doing it. And so what you want to do is do the best you can, and then it will continue to grow. And as it continues to grow, then you'll see yourself getting involved on another higher level, on another higher level, and pretty soon you're running for office.
There you go. Yes, I love it. I love it. Well, Deborah, how can people get a hold of you? I know early voting is started, so everybody
Yes.
needs to get out there and vote. But if they have any more questions for you or your visions or anything, how could they get a hold of you?
So I'm gonna put in the chat, and I don't know, there's just the two of us in the chat, but it's Deborah, Deborah Peoples for mayor.com. You
Okay.
can go and see my more importantly, I want you to go and look at my positions on everything. I have tried to outline my positions and vision for the city. So if you will go to Deborah Peoples for mayor, that will tell you that. And then if you want to ask me a question, go to the contact button, send me your question, we'll answer it. If you want to volunteer, if you want to give money, I am happy to take it. And so, Katie, our campaign is fueled by small donations. I never, because of the work I do, and I'm always out in community, I knew that we were running a race for the people. And so I wasn't looking for big donations. That our average donation is probably $25. I've gotten donations of 5 and 10, and I love and value them because it tells me that people care about their city and they want to have a say in our direction. So you can, if you don't have money, give me some time. I tell people it's your time, your talent, and your treasure. And I value and love all three. But if you don't have treasure, give me some of your time and your talent.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom and just sharing with us today. And, good luck. I can't wait to see how everything turns out.
Good.
And it has been my pleasure getting to talk with you. And I know you are a busy lady, so I'm going to let you go, um, go get back to it. But thank you so much for that
Okay.
wisdom and your stories and just sharing with us.
But before I sign off, you need to celebrate yourself because you too are a busy lady and you have all kinds of things going on in your life. And the fact that you would do a blog and get it out to people in the community is extraordinary. And I'm grateful to you.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that. Thank you
Okay.
so much, Deborah. I can't wait to see you in person soon. And
Okay.
just thank you again for everything today.
Okay. All right.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. We'll see you soon.